and welcome to this week's UKGN Network podcast. I'm Zoidberg. The long-awaited Gears 5 finally came out this week, which is the biggest Xbox exclusive since last year's Forza Horizon 4. This is a series that's always been known for being a big, glossy technical showcase, and the latest game doesn't disappoint. If this isn't the best looking game on the Xbox One X, it's definitely up there at the top end. Last time out, Gears of War 4 suffered from bad pacing, basically because it had to introduce the new characters for the new trilogy, whereas this gets straight into the action with a thrilling opening level, once you've got past the thankfully skippable tutorial that is. Being a rock solid 60 frames a second actually makes the game feel faster and more exciting than before. New features include the introduction of a robotic companion who can be equipped with special skills, and a couple of open world sections later on, even if you are still just crouched behind waist-high walls most of the time. All of the good things are things you could say about the previous Gears games as well, and the problem here is that I still have the same issues with Gears 5 that I've had with every other game in the series so far. It's all very slick and playable, but the gameplay loop of ducking behind cover, clearing a wave of enemies and moving to the next set of cover gets repetitive very quickly. It's enjoyable in small doses, but I can't play it for longer than 30 minutes at a time without getting bored and wanting to play something else. I've never finished the campaign of any game in the series, and I barely got halfway through the last one. However, I've already played this one a lot more than Gears 4. As for multiplayer, I have about as much interest in that as I do in a Downton Abbey movie, although the Horde mode is quite fun as long as you've got friends to play with. At the end of the day, more of the same is probably all that the Gears of War Hardcore wanted, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not going to win over any new fans. Eventually, all long-running franchises go stale. Look at what happened to Assassin's Creed before Ubisoft gave it a much-needed hiatus and turned it into more of an RPG with Origins. Resident Evil and Tomb Raider are well known for reinventing themselves every few games, and at the other end of the scale are the likes of Zelda and Final Fantasy where every game is different. Here are 5 other gaming franchises that are the same every time. Call of Duty. In 2007, Activision released Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare onto an unsuspecting public, and although you could argue that they've been re-releasing the same game every year since, it's the multiplayer that we're going to focus on here. Although the previous games had all featured an online element, this was the first game to take the competitive experience seriously, adding player progress, unlockable perks and prestige rankings. Whether we're playing Modern Warfare, Black Ops or Infinite Warfare, it feels like we've been playing the same team deathmatches over and over ever since. The same maps also keep cropping up via DLC, and the only reason to buy the new games is to avoid the inevitable server switch off further down the line. Dynasty Warriors. In terms of sales, Dynasty Warriors is Japan's answer to Call of Duty. They are epic fighting games with a slight tactical leaning, where you hack and slash your way through hundreds of soldiers to try and turn the tide of a battle. It wasn't always that way though. The first game was a simple one-on-one beat-em-up, a bit like Soul Blade, and it wasn't until Dynasty Warriors 2 arrived as a PS2 launch title that it became what we know today. Since then, 7 more main series entries have all featured essentially the same gameplay, without much in the way of innovation, and that's before you even count the Extreme Legends, Samurai Warriors and Gundam spin-offs. The 9th game tried to change things, leading to negative reviews and a fan backlash, so we should probably expect the next one to go back to basics. Halo. Halo was an instant smash at the launch of the original Xbox, and the proof that the industry needed that first-person shooters on consoles could work just as well as on PC. But honestly, I just don't get it. Fighting off the same small group of enemies every 5 minutes in similar locations doesn't make for a very thrilling experience, no matter how good the visuals or story are. Every now and then, the action was broken up with a section where you drive a warthog or pilot a ghost, but even these blur into one after a while. Every Halo campaign follows a similar pattern, and to this day I still have no idea what the Flood looked like in the original, because I got bored of playing it long before they turned up. I fully expect Halo Infinite to play in exactly the same way. Lego. Before Lego Star Wars, Traveller's Tales were making a name for themselves as the go-to developer for well-made Disney licenses. Then they hit pay dirt with not only a humorous, nostalgia-filled take on the prequel trilogy, but also by making gamers addicted to the collection of studs, and they've been making variations on the same game ever since. The same formula has been applied to countless other licenses. Indiana Jones, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Marvel, DC, Jurassic World have all topped the sales charts and found gamers punching, jumping and laughing their way through similar scenes and locations. It's one of the few child-friendly game series that adults also enjoy. The Skywalker Saga will be the 28th game in the series since 2005, so we can't see the well drying up just yet.
Okay, let's go.
Ridge Racer. Proving that familiarity isn't necessarily a bad thing is Namco's Ridge Racer series, featuring tracks in and around Ridge City and the same drift-packed arcade racing. What places it on our list, however, is the fact that Namco always tried to hide it, almost as if they were embarrassed to be making a pure arcade game. In the months leading up to a new game in the series, previews would talk about how it was going to be different this time. More realistic handling would make it something that Gran Turismo fans could get their teeth into. Then the game arrived and it was exactly the same as before. This blatant misdirection would usually mean that second-hand copies would turn up quickly. There are multiple games in the series across multiple formats and we love them all. We're definitely overdue another one. Are there any game series you think we've missed off our list? Let us know in the comments. Now it's time for the rest of the week's new releases. River City Girls is a role reversal on the traditional scrolling beat-em-up, featuring two high school girls on a quest to rescue their boyfriends. But fortunately, it's more than just a gimmick, as the game is a huge amount of fun. It's a collaboration between WayForward and Arc System Works, two developers who could make this kind of game in their sleep, so it's no surprise that the game is as slick and well made as this one. The gaudy colour scheme and upbeat music fit perfectly with the cartoon look, and the 16-bit style graphics bring back memories of playing Scott Pilgrim. There are a couple of minor gripes. It takes too long in the early stages to level up and unlock more fighting moves, there's not a lot of enemy variety overall, and you get the same cutscenes every time you die. Having to skip them gets very annoying. My other issue is the price. £25 is too much for it, especially when you can buy the Capcom Beat 'em Up bundle and get 7 similar games of similar quality for £10 less. I'll admit it, I was more excited to play Blasphemous than any other game this week, simply because the trailer had made it look a little bit like Dead Cells, our 2018 Game of the Year, in case you forgot. Like that game, it features some truly stunning pixel animation, and is a side-scrolling platformer, but that's where the similarities end. This is a far more brutal game in tone, setting and gameplay, but that doesn't mean it's not also great. Combat requires you to be much more methodical and cautious, learning the attack patterns of each and every enemy and the best way to take them down. The fact that they are in exactly the same place every time actually feels like a novelty, but it also makes it a lot easier to learn and get better at the game as a result. To say that some of the death animations are a bit vicious would be a major understatement. At various points you can go and explore different routes if you're finding another one a little bit too tough, and there's a good variety of areas to visit. A great deal of effort has clearly gone into the game's backstory and lore, as almost everything you collect has a detailed description for you to read. While it's not the game that I initially expected it to be, Blasphemous is definitely well worth a purchase. Combining sport and rhythm games might not be the oddest thing we've ever heard of, but in Super Dodgeball Beats it's like they've never been apart. Two teams line up on either side of the court and do battle by deflecting balls in time to the beat, and rather than a standard arcade mode, you play through a league championship, complete with end of season playoffs. It works really well, as the 4 members of your team are positioned to match the buttons on your controller, but because you're concentrating so much on the music and the markers, you don't get to see how good the game's animation actually is. What this means though is that it's a great game to watch someone else play. When things get intense, it can be quite difficult to see which command is coming, particularly when you're playing in portable mode on the Switch, but this never really stops you from enjoying it. The music is good, but a few more memorable tracks and a bit more variety in styles would have worked wonders. Retro Game of the Week time now, and it's a great week to talk about the games of yesteryear, as Nintendo finally brought SNES games to the Switch Online library. They've single-handedly justified the annual subscription cost by giving players the chance to play genuine classics like Super Mario World, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, F-Zero, Pilot Wings and Star Fox. But for me, it's always Super Ghouls and Ghosts that brings the most joy. This is officially the 3rd game in the series that began with Ghosts and Goblins in the arcades back in 1985, and it makes great use of the sprite scaling and rotation capabilities of the SNES. Arthur once again has to battle his way through some incredibly challenging levels, not once but twice if you want to see the proper ending. To help you, there's a great selection of weapon and armour power-ups you can collect, and a fantastic double jump that comes into its own once you perfect it. Like many games of its era, there are some moments of slowdown when a lot is happening on screen, but that's all part of the charm. It still plays fantastically well today, but it would be nice if you could turn off the included rewind option. That brings this week's show to an end. Let us know what you think in the comments. why not follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at UKGN Network to see notifications of what we're playing and announcements of upcoming live streams. I'll be back next week with a packed show including our thoughts on Borderlands 3 and Greedfall. Until then, thanks for watching. Bye for now.